a town in New Mexico that apparently doesn't exist. I don't remember the name of it and I can't find it on any map. Me and my then husband were driving across country. We were on the I-40. We needed a bathroom break and we saw a sign for a gas station. So we took the exit and things started to get weird. After the exit, the first road that we got on was a totally straight road. Not too uncommon out there, but it still felt a little weird. There was one small building off to the left I thought was a gas station. As we got closer, I realized that it wasn't. I don't know what it was, I just remember it was blue and it had one window. There were power lines and nothing else in sight. Continuing forward and hoping that the gas station wasn't too far off, I started to feel more and more uneasy. Time felt weird, it felt like everything was slowing down. After a few more minutes of driving, we noticed we were coming up to a building on the left side of the road, feeling a sense of relief and thinking it was a gas station. But as we got closer, we realized it wasn't a gas station at all, but it was the same exact blue building we had encountered just off of the highway. My husband and I looked at each other absolutely bewildered. We looked behind us and there was no sign of the highway or the first blue building. We tried to shake it off and continued forward, but this kept happening. This same stretch of highway, the same blue building. It's like we were stuck in a time loop, just repeating over and over again. It must have happened at least a dozen times. I wanted to turn around and get out of there, but somehow I couldn't. I felt almost paralyzed, like I was stuck just driving straight forward. Neither of us spoke for the longest time. And then suddenly it just felt like a fog was lifted and we woke up. A few seconds later, we finally see the gas station up ahead. We both just kind of looked at each other and said, "What the hell?" as I pulled into the parking lot. Neither of us wanted to leave the comfort of our car, but we both really had to go to the bathroom. So after a few minutes of back and forth, we both just said screw it and got out of the car. Something immediately felt off. It was a tiny gas station with one pump and one small convenience store attached. There was a sign that said restrooms pointing to the side of the building, so that's where we headed. There we found a door to a long dark corridor. It was all brick and cement. There were doors up ahead to the right hand side, so we hoofed it to them. Finally, bathrooms. They weren't the nicest bathrooms, but we did our business and all was normal. As we were walking back out of the corridor, we came across a young woman coming into the corridor as we were exiting. She stopped and stared at us like we had three heads. She looked bewildered and terrified. She hurried past us towards the bathrooms. Something about the look on her face, or maybe it was just a feeling that told us we were running out of time. We had to get out of there now. We booked it back to the car and onto the road towards where the highway should be. In just a few minutes, we saw the same blue building as before. Then the highway on-ramp just past it. We had no trouble getting back onto the highway and driving away from that town. It was such a weird, almost insidious experience, almost like something, I don't know, it felt like something didn't want us to leave. Something almost trapped us, but we got away. The further away we drove, the more confused we were as to why we didn't just turn around and leave in the first place. It was like we weren't in control. I hope to never experience anything like that again. I scoured Google Maps, Street View, satellite images, anything that I could think of for about 2 years before giving up. This happened just a little over 3 years ago, and as time goes on, I seem to forget more and more about where it should be. The details slip away, but I'll remember the feeling forever. When my brother and I were 10 and 12 respectively, our family, which consists of my mom, my stepdad, and my baby sister, went on a hike through the cemetery and into the woods not far from our house. That day, we took the usual route, walked through the overgrown path that cuts through the back of the cemetery, past the angel with the broken wing, and into the tree line. It was an early afternoon, sunny, but cool. Nothing felt off. If anything, it felt kinda perfect. My brother and I, we lived in those woods growing up. We explored them daily. We built forts out of deadfalls and vines. We even camped overnight, more than once. We knew every deer trail, every fallen tree, every weird mushroom cluster. We had never gotten turned around or lost in there, not once. After maybe an hour, we hit our usual resting spot. It was by the creek. There's a bend there where the water slows and deepens just enough to splash around. While our parents and sister stopped for lunch break, they started unpacking snacks. My brother and I asked if we could explore a little upstream. My mom gave her usual 10-minute warning, and then we were off. We followed the creek for a little bit, hopping from stone to stone, half looking for frogs and half just wanting to move. Then we saw it, a hill. We both stopped walking. This wasn't just some rise in the land, it was steep, tall and wide with trees all over. They were marked with big sloppy red X's, like they had been marked to be cut down. All around the bases of the trees were things. Like household things, like someone had taken a fully furnished house and just dumped it there. Dressers with clothes spilling out, lamps, broken toys, warped picture frames, Most of it was old and moldy and falling apart, but some of it wasn't. I remember seeing a red velvet chair that looked practically new. It was sitting crooked on the slope. It was like someone had just gotten up off of it and walked away. I remember thinking it looked like the house had just been erased around all of this stuff. My brother started poking through some of the junk while I stood there, my eyes fixed on the red chair. That's when I noticed something else. There weren't any birds, no squirrels, no buzzing, no forest sounds, not even the creek behind us. It was just dead quiet. And then something snapped me out of my daze. We heard someone calling our names. At first we thought it was Mom. It sounded like her, but far off. Her voice sounded strained. Listening closer, it didn't quite sound right. It was her voice, sure, but not in the way she usually called for us. Not panicked, not annoyed, just flat. Like she was repeating it over and over. She had the same tone, same inflection. It was like it was a recording. We both looked at each other and didn't say a word. We just booked it. We ran maybe 20 feet back down the hill, back towards the creek, and there they all were, our family, gathered around the backpacks, looking like they'd been put through hell. When Mom saw us, she lost it. She grabbed us, checked us for bruises, and screamed at us. But what stuck with me wasn't the yelling. It was her face, her eyes, the panic in her voice. She looked like she had been crying. She said that we had been gone for almost 4 hours. We were stunned. 4 hours? There was no way. On our end, it was maybe 45 minutes, an hour tops. We tried to tell her about the hill, about the junk, the X's on the trees. She didn't believe any of it. She said she watched us walking along the creek path. She turned around to change my sister, and when she looked back up, we were gone. She never saw us turn off of the creek path, and she never saw the hill. We were grounded for a week, but we didn't care. The next time we got the chance, we went back, determined to find the hill, but it was gone. We walked the creek path, forward and back. We combed the woods, checked every angle. Nothing, not even a patch of disturbed dirt or snapped branches where we might have veered off. It was like it never existed. Over the next few years, we kept searching. Anytime we had daylight and no chores, we were out there. Once we got older, we even started mapping out the area, drawing our own little trail maps, marking off what we had covered. We went way deeper than we ever had as kids, and we still found nothing. The worst that ever happened to me was a summer night when I was 16. I was camping solo out there. My brother had a summer job and he worked overnights. I have no idea exactly what time this happened, but I woke up to something brushing up against my tent. It wasn't an animal. It was slow, almost like fingertips dragging across the fabric. I held my breath and just laid there frozen until it stopped. As soon as the sun came up, I packed up and got out of there. I never camped out there solo again. We've never found that hill, never found the stuff, never found anything that proves it was real. Sometimes I think maybe we imagined it in some kind of shared hallucination. But then I remember the 4 hours, the crying, the dripping red paint. We're both grown now, with families of our own. One day, my son came home and told me about a kid at school telling stories of something in the woods, a hill, a house that wasn't there anymore, strange junk where it shouldn't be. I don't ask any questions, I just listen because I know what he saw. And I know that he'll never see it again. What I'm about to tell you is the creepiest moment I've ever experienced in my entire life. My best friends and I were on a road trip that started out in Wisconsin, and the end goal was to end up in the Canadian Rockies. We started out west with the goal to get to Montana, then head north about where Calgary is, and then continue a bit west. We had done lots of camping in South Dakota, Wyoming, and Colorado, and we were used to seeing and stopping in small, rural cowboy towns, as we like to call them. Nothing quite prepared us for our stop in Montana. We assumed Montana would be a lot like Wyoming, a few big cities, but mostly small rural ones, and a lot of land with nothing in between. We had often stopped in smaller towns since they usually had public campgrounds that we could use for pretty cheap, and then just keep going early the next morning. It was getting to be about the time that we decided to stop for the night. We were a bit west of Billings and about to start heading north near Glacier National Park, where we wanted to do a little visiting before crossing into Canada. We found a small town. I can't remember the name of it now because we didn't end up staying for very long, but the population sign said around 200. I can't remember the exact number now. A few minutes into town, we saw a campground, a hotel, and a gas station with one restaurant. We pulled up to the gas station, and while we were filling up, we didn't see a single person on the street, which was really weird because it was early evening. It was only about 5 p.m. We were all just kind of standing around, looking at the old buildings in the gas station garage area, when suddenly we saw something move in the window. The blinds were down, but still open, so we were still able to see inside. We saw what looked like a child in the corner, but he was bald. He quickly moved away from the window when he saw that we noticed him. We were going to go into the store area to buy some food and drinks, but we decided it was probably best to keep moving. The whole vibe kind of reminded us of being in like the Hills of Eyes or something. It was the same style of landscape and the same gas station. So we finished gassing up and get back in the car. We decided to stop 2 blocks away at the only restaurant in town. It was this dinky little place named Pat's Diner. There was a total of 2 cars in the parking lot and the open sign was on, so we figured, hey, it's the only place, we're here and we gotta eat, so let's go. Walking up to the door, we can hear lots of people talking and laughing inside. It seems like a nice place. What happened next was both the most confusing and disturbing thing I have ever been a part of. I feel like I walked into some B horror movie. As soon as we open the door and step in, everyone in the whole place instantly stops talking, moving, and doing whatever they were doing and turns and stares at us. The whole place was packed. I figure there were maybe 10 to 15 tables, but there was at least 50 people in this place. We just stood there in silence for what seemed like hours, but it was only probably 10 seconds. All of a sudden, this very old lady in the booth right in front of us slowly turns her head around. It felt like she was moving in slow motion, and I wish I was joking when I tell you she was wearing 2 eye patches. And then all of a sudden, in a creepy, raspy voice, she says,
"What do you want here?"
Nothing. All of us immediately turned around and sprinted back to the car and got back on the road. We had no idea what just happened. I feel like if we had stayed there, we would have been murdered or made into couches, or both. We didn't stop until we got into Canada, where all we saw were bears and mountains for days. It still turned out to be a great trip, but that was a really messed up moment that I still can't wrap my head around.